They say death comes for all men, but what if it missed someone? Before the flood swallowed the earth, before the laws of Moses were ever written, before the cross split time in two, there was a man, not just any man, a man who walked with God so closely. He never tasted death, no tomb, no farewell, no final breath. He vanished, caught up into realms too holy for most to even speak of. And what he saw should not exist. 10 heavens, not one, not 3, but 10 layers of divine order, spiritual war and glory so raw it could shatter human minds, secrets hidden from the world, truths too explosive for religion to handle. For centuries his name was whispered. Enoch, the scribe of heaven, the one who gazed into the storehouses of lightning, who saw the prisons of fallen angels, who beheld the thrones of judgment and mercy. But if his revelations were so holy, why was his book buried? Why was it ripped from Scripture, banished, silenced? Could it be because it revealed too much? Because it unveiled the true architecture of heaven, the cosmic courtroom where justice is not delayed, only layered, where angels once trusted became traitors, and where God's plan for humanity was more radical than we ever imagined. In this video, we'll walk with Enoch through 10 layers of heaven and into the heart of divine mystery. We'll uncover why his writings were exiled, whether by man or by God himself. And most of all, we'll explore what it truly means to walk with God in a broken world. If this awakens something in you, a hunger for the lost truths, a longing to see beyond the veil, then don't just watch, engage. Comment your thoughts below. What have you been told about Enoch? Why do you think his book was silenced? Hit like if your spirit is stirred. Subscribe if you're ready to go deeper. Because this journey, it might just change your eternity. The 10 heavens Enoch saw, and why they should not exist. What if heaven is not one radiant kingdom, but a divine architecture, layered and burning with secrets too holy for mortal tongues? Enoch did not merely dream. He was taken. Carried beyond the realm of dust and decay, his feet touched places where stars are born and angels tremble. He crossed the thresholds of 10 heavens, not symbolic, not abstract, but tangible, thundering dimensions of order, judgment, worship, and unimaginable glory. In the first heaven, Enoch saw the storehouses of snow and the waters that nourish the earth. It looked simple, almost mundane, yet even here, the order of God whispered through wind and vapor. This was the stage for what would come next, a cosmic progression from the seen to the unspeakable. The second heaven burned with a terrifying beauty. Here, he found angels chained, weeping and writhing in silence. Their sin, they had crossed a divine line. These were the Watchers, imprisoned not in hell, but in a celestial exile above the earth. And Enoch, a man wrapped in flesh, saw them, heard them. He was told their stories. You see, heaven isn't just about light, it's layered with justice. There are prisons in heaven, not for torment, but containment. Imagine the impact of such a revelation on the religious mind, that above the clouds lies a courtroom, a cage, a divine holding cell. The third heaven was where Eden still lived. Yes, Eden, not a myth, not a fable. The garden was preserved here, a radiant realm of trees dripping with life. Here, the souls of the righteous waited, clothed in light. It was paradise reborn. In Dante's Divine Comedy, paradise was distant, poetic. But for Enoch, it was vivid, real, green with divine breath. And yet, how many today imagine heaven as a golden city, flat, one-dimensional? How many have missed the richness, the layers, the unfolding intimacy of God's design? The fourth heaven shimmered with celestial bodies. The sun and moon stood on pillars of fire, surrounded by thousands of angels singing the rhythms of time. Every solar cycle, every lunar eclipse, they are not accidents. They are songs. They are schedules written into the sky. Here, Enoch saw angelic scribes recording light. They didn't worship the sun, they kept it in order. Think about that. Think about the sun you saw rise this morning. It is being watched, measured, held in place by unseen hands. And you thought angels only sang. The fifth heaven opened into a place of mourning. Yes, mourning. Angels stood, eyes cast down, unable to lift their faces. These were the Grigori, once noble, now fallen. Their hearts were shattered because they had abandoned their post. And yet, they still existed in a heavenly tier, not in hell, not erased, but held in grief. It is here that heaven teaches us, guilt is not the end of a being. Even fallen ones are remembered. Restoration might still whisper to them through time. In the sixth heaven, Enoch encountered archangels, towering, terrifying. They discussed the fate of nations and the secrets of time. Here, he heard the names of nations not yet born and saw scrolls with histories unwritten. This was not a place of worship, but of strategy. Divine command centers, thrones not of gold, but of glory. Can you feel the weight of that? That there are angels right now debating the movements of kings and empires? That what we call history is the echo of decisions made in silence above? And then the seventh heaven. Oh, here, language begins to fail. The curtain lifted, and Enoch beheld the fiery hosts. The very presence of God blazed beyond comprehension. My friend, this was not a church choir moment. This was unfiltered majesty. The kind that makes blood freeze and bones bow. The kind of glory that swallows ego whole. Every creature sang in tongues of fire, eyes covered, voices thunderous. No shadows here, only light that cracked existence open. Heaven 8 through 10, so little is spoken, because here Enoch crossed into the realms where mysteries are not explained, but embodied. The ninth was the place of the Most High's name, where every utterance was alive, and in the 10th he came into the throne room. But not like Isaiah or John. This was pre-flood, pre-Moses, pre-Christ. And yet, Enoch stood, a mortal, a witness. Now ask yourself, why would such a vision be hidden? Why was the Book of Enoch stripped from our Bibles? Could it be that the human mind was not ready? Or worse, that religion feared it? Because if Enoch is right, then heaven is not the distant reward we wait for. It's the living structure we walk under, every second. And if you knew that above your head there were angels writing your thoughts into eternal scrolls, would you still live the same? We've been taught heaven is a place of clouds and harps, but Enoch knew better. He knew heaven was war and wonder, prisons and gardens, scrolls and stars. It is not merely where God resides, it is the architecture of his justice. It is the pulse of his holiness. It is alive. The lesson? Heaven is not just a destination, it is a revelation. You don't wait to go there, you wake up to its reality. What tier of heaven are you walking under right now? Have you mistaken the first for the last? Are you stuck in the prison of guilt when Eden waits above you? If this stirs your soul, say something. Comment with what you imagine the third or fifth heaven looks like. Do you think we're meant to ascend these layers during life, or only after death? And now, we descend from the heights of heaven to a tragedy that altered creation itself. For there were angels who did not keep their place, and they saw beauty in daughters of men. Their love was not holy, it was hunger, and it birthed the age of chaos. Let us walk into the shadowed history of the Watchers. Judgment in heaven and earth, divine justice in layers. There is a courtroom above the stars, not made of oak benches or marble floors, but of radiant fire and thunderous silence, where light speaks and darkness flees without a sound. It is not a myth. Enoch walked into it. He saw what no priest, no prophet, no philosopher could ever imagine. A justice system written not in law books but in light. In the second heaven there are prisons, not beneath the earth, not in caverns of flame, but suspended in the sky, where rebel spirits are bound in waiting. The fifth heaven weeps with fallen angels. Grigori, who once stood in glory, now bowed in silence, chained not just in form, but in grief. And you must ask, why would heaven have prisons? Because justice is not chaos. God is not reactionary. His justice flows from design, from purpose, from love wrapped in order. Unlike the justice of men, which punishes to satisfy vengeance, heaven's judgment heals what was broken. Even its punishments point toward restoration. The rebel spirits, the watchers who betrayed their posts, they are not merely banished, they are remembered, contained, grieved over. Think of our own courts. They are cold, mechanical, blind. But God's justice sees everything: motive, memory, the moment you flinched before sin, and the moment you embraced it. Divine justice is layered. It holds your story in its fullness. It does not crush, it calibrates. And this is why Enoch's vision was so disruptive. He exposed a system that made human courts look primitive and cruel by comparison. In the heavenly halls, Enoch heard verdicts spoken in tongues of fire, not shouts, not rage, but clarity, unshakable, unchanging clarity. He watched as angels wrote the names of nations. He saw scrolls unrolled before the throne. He realized that justice is not an event, it is an eternal process. And you right now are living in the echo of those verdicts. Do you feel the weight of that? That your life is not random, that your sufferings are seen, that your sins are counted, but so is your potential. There is no corner too dark, no story too ruined, that heaven has not already prepared a judgment for and a restoration beyond it. And Enoch, he was not just a witness, he was a messenger, like Moses would be, like Elijah, like Jesus, the ultimate bridge. He walked the line between dimensions, between justice and mercy, between what is and what must be made right again. So what do we learn? That God's justice is not for fear, it is for freedom. It tells the abuser, you will be stopped. It tells the victim, you are not forgotten. And it tells the soul wandering in shame, there is still time to turn back. Think about the prison in heaven again. What if that prison isn't just for fallen angels, but for the voices of guilt still chaining you? What if God's light wants to sentence that guilt to silence? And now, we must go deeper. If Enoch saw all this, why was his message hidden? Who decided that this light was too much? Let us open the pages that men tried to bury and step into the exile of a sacred book. The exile of the Book of Enoch, censored by men or by God. A book so powerful it was buried, hidden, torn from the sacred canon, not by time, but by hands afraid of its fire. The Book of Enoch, once read, once revered, vanished from the public square. But it never disappeared. It whispered through the shadows of theology, survived in caves, in scrolls, in the quiet corners of forgotten churches. Ethiopia guarded it. The desert scrolls remembered it, and today it returns, asking us not only to read, but to remember. But why was it exiled? Why would a writing quoted in the Book of Jude be declared heretical? Because it dared to speak of angels, of rebellions in the sky, of prisons above clouds and secrets buried before Adam's breath. It shattered the simple narratives. It painted a cosmos full of drama and structure far beyond what early systems of theology could control. Enoch wrote of watchers, of celestial courts, of the coming Son of Man long before Bethlehem. He prophesied the judgment of fallen angels and the hope of the righteous. And yet, he was silenced, because the church in its infancy feared mystery, feared that giving voice to such cosmic detail would fracture the system they sought to build. The Catholic tradition, in forming the canon, favored order, hierarchy, control. Books like Enoch, Jubilees, the Gospel of Thomas, they were exiled not always for error, but for being too dangerous, too uncontainable. And yet what man censors, God often preserves. The Dead Sea Scrolls surfaced. Ancient Christians in Ethiopia never let it go. And Jude, the brother of Jesus, quoted it openly. Behold, the Lord comes with thousands upon thousands of his holy ones. That's Enoch, right there, not metaphor, not myth. Canon quoting exile. It forces us to ask, what other truths were too true to be safe? What wisdom did we lose? Not because it was false, but because it made us feel too small. Maybe Enoch's vision wasn't meant for all times. Maybe it was hidden until now, until a generation bold enough to seek mysteries, humble enough to be undone by them, and desperate enough to reach for what lies beyond doctrine. And if you're still listening, perhaps you're part of that generation. Perhaps you were born for the time when silenced books speak again. So I ask you now, should the Book of Enoch have been removed? Or are we finally ready to hear what it always said? Comment your thoughts. Should lost books be restored to the Bible? What do we gain or risk by hearing them? But before we move forward, let us step into something even more personal. A story of names, of legacy, of two Enochs, one who walked with God and one who built the first city without him. Cain's Enoch versus Seth's Enoch. Two cities, two legacies. In the opening chapters of Genesis, two men carry the same name, Enoch, one born of rebellion, the other born of devotion, one rooted in the line of Cain, the other in the line of Seth. And yet only one walked with God. Cain, the restless wanderer, the soil-stained brother-killer, builds a city, and to that city he gives a name, Enoch, his son, his legacy. The first city in human history, born from the blood of a broken family, wrapped in the pride of man who had turned from God. That Enoch becomes a symbol of civilization without surrender. Progress without presence. A city named after man, not God. But generations later, through Seth's line, another Enoch is born. This Enoch does not build a city. He builds a walk. A hidden life, a path so intimate with God that he is taken, not in death, but in glory. One Enoch builds structures, the other builds surrender. And is that not the choice before us today? To live like Cain's Enoch, piling stone upon stone, carving legacies in buildings and systems, but with hearts drifting from the source. Or to live like Seth's Enoch, unseen, unfamous, but unforgettable in heaven's eyes. We must learn this. Your name does not define your destiny. Your direction does. You can come from chaos and still walk with God. You can be born of failure and still be called righteous. Bloodlines do not determine favor. Your hunger for God does. In every generation there are two Enochs, the one the world sees and the one heaven sees. Which one are you becoming? Think about your legacy. Are you building a city or a walk? And now, having seen the layers of justice, the silencing of sacred truth, and the choice of legacy, we step into the most mysterious of all truths: men who never died. Let us meet those who broke the very rules of mortality: Elijah, Melchizedek, and the one who walked straight into eternity, Enoch. Enoch, Elijah, and Melchizedek, men who broke the rules of death. There are some men whose stories refuse to die, not because they escaped the grave, but because the grave could not hold them in the first place. Enoch, Elijah, Melchizedek. 3 names written in the sacred tapestry of eternity. 3 men who bent the very laws of mortality, not through magic, but through a closeness with God that made death lose its grip. They did not conquer death with swords or rituals. They simply walked, and never stopped walking. Enoch, the man who pleased God so deeply that heaven opened its gates early. He did not die. Scripture says he was no more, as if the world blinked and he was gone. Elijah, the prophet of fire, bold and burning, taken in a whirlwind, horses of flame escorting his flesh to the unseen. And then there is Melchizedek, the priest of Salem, without father, without mother, without beginning or end. A mystery wrapped in flesh. A king priest whose very identity confuses time. He appears to Abraham out of nowhere, receives tithes, blesses, and vanishes, leaving a footprint too divine to erase. But what unites these 3? It is not immortality. It is not perfection. It is proximity. They lived so close to the divine current that they became part of it. They were men who refused to be defined by the dust they were made from. They carried something in their spirits, an ancient fire, a surrender too holy for decay to touch. They were not just men. They were moments in motion, evidence that walking with God transforms how time and death treat you. Enoch's path was not paved with miracles. He didn't call down fire or part waters. He simply walked, every day, quiet, faithful, steady, until his walk became weightless, until his steps no longer echoed on earth. He teaches us this: you do not need to be famous to be remembered by heaven. You need to be faithful. Elijah, on the other hand, was loud, thunder in a prophet's cloak. He shattered idols, defied kings, outran chariots. But his fire wasn't pride, it was purity. He burned because he refused to bow. When the world compromised, he stayed sharp. He shows us that courage and intimacy are not opposites. They are twins. Those who walk closest with God often walk alone before men. Melchizedek stands in a category all his own, a man who carries the air of eternity. The scriptures hint that he was more than mortal, perhaps a Christophany, a pre-incarnate glimpse of Jesus himself, the King of righteousness, the priest of peace. Appearing without explanation, disappearing without death. He reveals a truth often missed. The divine roles are not always given to the loudest, but to those who carry eternity in their silence. Now pause for a moment. What if your fear of death isn't about dying, but about being forgotten? These men broke the rules of death not just because they were chosen, but because they chose God again and again. They walked when others sat. They listened when others shouted. They remembered heaven when the earth tried to distract them. The world says death is the end. Heaven says, for some, it is merely a door that opens without a sound. And this is the lesson that binds these lives together. You do not escape death by avoiding it. You transcend death by walking so close to life itself that death becomes irrelevant. How would your life change if you lived like that? If your every step was a declaration that you belong to something eternal? That death can knock, but it cannot enter without permission. These 3 men call out across centuries, not as myths, but as maps. They show us the way, not around death, but beyond it. And if your heart is stirred, ask yourself, what are you walking with? The opinions of people, the weight of failure, or the presence of God? Comment with the one you resonate with most, Enoch, Elijah, or Melchizedek. Whose path reflects your hunger? Whose journey feels like your invitation? Now, take a breath. You've heard of men who walked with God, but what does it mean for you? In a modern world of noise, distraction, and deception, can you really walk with the divine? Let's descend from the mountaintops and step into your everyday moments. Because Enoch didn't live in paradise, he lived in chaos, and still, he walked with God. What does it mean to walk with God today? It's a phrase we whisper in church halls and morning devotions. Walk with God. But what does it mean, really? Is it a poetic metaphor or a practical reality? Is it only for saints of the past, or is it for souls like yours and mine? To walk with God today is not to float in bliss. It is to choose intimacy over convenience, presence over performance. It is to turn the ordinary into sacred ground. Your kitchen becomes a sanctuary. Your commute becomes a chapel. Your tears become offerings. To walk with God is to bring Him into the smallest things, your decisions, your thoughts, your tone of voice. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present with Him again and again. Enoch lived in a world flooded with violence, pride, and spiritual chaos. He was not sheltered. He was not safe. And yet he chose proximity over popularity. He didn't isolate himself in fear. He lived among the people, but he walked with the presence. Every moment, he practiced awareness. Every step, he honored his Creator. Until his walk became ascension. You don't need to be a prophet to walk with God. You need to be intentional. Set aside the noise. Slow down your soul. Open your heart, not just on Sundays, but on Tuesdays at noon when no one is watching. Walking with God means you trust Him when the world shakes. It means saying yes when comfort screams no. It means obeying in secret, loving without applause, repenting without delay. It is not spectacular, but it is supernatural. And if you've been wandering, feeling distant, you're not too far. You're one step away, one silent moment, one whispered yes. That's all it takes to begin the walk again. You were never meant to run this race alone. You were never meant to carry it all. The walk with God is not a sprint of performance. It's a rhythm of surrender. One step, one breath, one prayer. And here's the truth most people miss. You don't need to see angels to walk with God. You don't need signs in the sky or thunder in your bedroom. You need a heart that listens. That's where He dwells. That's where the journey begins. So if you've been asking for purpose, searching for something deeper, wondering why your soul still aches even when life is fine, this is your answer. Walk with Him. Ask yourself, what would change if every hour of your life was lived with the awareness that God was beside you? What decisions would you make differently? What habits would fall away like dead leaves? If this word stirred something in you, let it rise. Comment how you've experienced God in your daily walk, or what barriers you've faced. This is not just a message, it's an invitation. And now, the journey must continue. We've seen the layers of heaven, the fall of angels, the exile of sacred texts, and the men who defeated death. But one question still burns. Why did Enoch see all of this? And what does it mean that his final message was never fully delivered? Let us step into that last chapter. The walk does not end here. It begins. And so, here we are, standing at the edge of a mystery that still whispers through eternity. Enoch is gone, vanished from earth, yet his footprints blaze across the heavens like fire trails through the sky. He walked with God and did not die, not because he ran from the world, but because he lived inside a rhythm most have forgotten, a rhythm of divine intimacy. One step, one heartbeat, one surrender at a time. Heaven did not wait for him, it welcomed him. And his journey, though ancient, is not finished. It stretches into you. Perhaps you've felt it, that tug in the silence, that question in your chest when the world is loud, but your soul longs for more. Maybe you've looked at the night sky and wondered if someone was calling your name. Maybe you've buried your hunger for the divine beneath layers of routine, doubt, or distraction. But what if that hunger is holy? What if it's the echo of Enoch's walk, still humming through the corridors of time, searching for a heart that will say yes? You don't need a perfect past to walk with God. You don't need titles or answers or eloquent prayers. All you need is a willing step, one honest moment, a whisper in the dark that says, "I want to know you." That's where it begins. That's where the ordinary becomes sacred and the hidden becomes holy. Enoch did not chase greatness, he pursued presence. And in doing so, he found a door that leads not to fame, but to forever. We live in a time where truth is buried, where justice feels broken, where eternity is treated like fiction. But the Book of Enoch reminds us, there is more. There are layers above your sight, courts above the clouds, scrolls written in lightning. And the same God who opened heaven for Enoch still listens for footsteps, still waits for wanderers, still welcomes the willing. You don't have to be perfect to be pursued. You just have to be present. With your pain, your doubts, your fragile faith, bring it all. He doesn't ask for polish, he asks for your path. And if you've stumbled along the way, even better, because the cracks in your journey let the glory shine through. God has never been impressed by performance. He is moved by surrender. There's a sacred heaviness in your chest right now because something eternal is knocking. It's not religion. It's not ritual. It's invitation to walk again. To remember who you are beyond your name, beyond your past. You were made to walk in the Garden of Eden, and the garden still waits, not behind time, but beyond distraction. Every step you take toward him becomes a step into who you were always meant to be. This isn't just history, it's a mirror, a map, a voice calling you home. When you feel too tired to walk, crawl. When you feel too ashamed to speak, whisper. When you feel too lost to believe, breathe. He is closer than your next heartbeat and more faithful than your fears. Enoch's story is not entertainment. It is a reminder that heaven watches, that justice is layered and luminous, that books may be buried, but truth always resurrects, that even in a world drowning in noise, one man's quiet walk with God still shouts across generations. And if something in this story touched your soul, if it awakened a longing you didn't know had a name, let it speak. Don't silence it. Comment what stirred your heart, what questions burned in you, what heaven you think you've touched, and what layer you're longing for. Your voice matters here. It echoes farther than you think, and others who are walking alone may find their courage in your words. If this video brought light to your darkness or comfort to your questions, I invite you to offer a little warmth back, just a bit of energy, a gesture of support, so I can keep creating these spaces of wonder, truth, and restoration. Every small act of love, whether it's a like, a share, a kind word, is fuel for this journey. You never know how far one spark can reach. And from the depths of my heart, thank you. You are part of something sacred. Let this not be the end, but the beginning of your walk. Subscribe if you feel the pull of the eternal. Stay close if you want more of the mysteries heaven still holds. And if your heart feels heavy tonight, let it. That weight is sacred. That ache is divine. The story of Enoch is not over. It's being written in your steps. Let your walk begin. Now,